Okay, well, before we jump into the next type of symbols, one thing that I forgot to mention that, and sometimes I do this, it's just automatic for me, and that is scaling things down. You saw me do it in the last tutorial, but if I grab a rock out here and that rock is way too big, I can scale it down. I need the black arrow. This is the move tool, or what do they call it, the selection tool. So once I select it, and let me do one thing here too. I'm going to go back to my layers. I want to change the color of this. I'm going to double click on it so that you can see it. I'm going to change it from yellow to magenta is probably good. There we go. It's a little better. Alright, so when I select an object, I get these what's called handlebars around it. So these handlebars allow me to grab them and drag them and shrink them in. Now you'll notice that as I shrink it, that it also tweaks the proportions. So if I want to constrain those proportions, then what I do is click, hold the shift key down, drag in and out, and even if I drag way over here, which should stretch it out, it doesn't do that. It constrains those proportions so that it stays proportional. So that's how you can shrink something down. The constrained proportions works on all these handlebars in Illustrator, Photoshop. It does weird things, but if I don't, I can stretch it, which is kind of nice to be able to tweak it. Then I don't have to draw a new rock. I can stretch it out and make it look like a totally new rock. Alright, so that's how you scale things. Now let's take a look at the next kind of symbol, and that is a symbol where you're trying to avoid the tediousness of repetitive things like silt. You don't want to sit there and spend hours and hours and hours drawing like we have here every little teeny dot. So what I do in order to avoid this is I've created, let's go back to my master symbol library, all these symbols that I've drawn up, and I've drawn out a patch of silt. So let's zoom in here and take a look. I went through the tediousness of drawing dots over and over again once, and then I don't have to do it again. So here is my silt. Now it would be a pain, let's say I copy this with Control C and come back over here and Control V. See, did we paste it? Control V. There we go. And now it's huge and I have to go through and delete dots, and that's just a pain to do. So what I can do is let's bring it back over here. I'm going to paste it again. I'm going to zoom out so you can see this. So in this document I could draw up my silt. Now it needs to be within a square, because when I do this next thing, which is creating a swatch, when it lays out, when it fills an object, it's going to fill and continue to repeat over and over again. You know, like the back of a really bad website where they have an image repeating over and over. So I've tried to lay it out so that when it does repeat, it looks fairly seamless. You can't see the edges. So that's one thing that's important to do when you do this. So I'm going to go to Window and I'm going to open my swatches. Let's see. Let's bring this over so you can see it. And there are my swatches. It appears right here. Let's bring that over so we can work with it. And at this point, I'm going to turn this into a swatch by grabbing it, dragging it, dropping it right there, and there is my new swatch. It appeared right there. So I can delete this now. Don't need that because the swatch is saved. And basically what a swatch is a how would you call it? A predefined fill that we've created for an object. And let me demonstrate. So I'm going to grab the pen tool here. Zoom in a little bit, not that far. And I'm just going to draw a strange shape here. And there we go. Okay, so I've created this blob here, and it now has a black fill. I can change that by double-clicking here on this square, opening the color picker and grabbing a blue. Now it's got a blue fill. Or I can come over here and click on one of these swatches, and that gives it that predefined fill color. We've got some gradients here. I can give it a gradient. Or this new swatch that I just created, what happens when I click on that? It gives it that fill. And let's see, so this now is my silt. You'll notice too that as I move the shape, so that my shape is moving here, this fill is sort of fixed back behind it. So it's almost like this is just a window looking down onto this grid pattern. So that's one of the problems with swatches, with these sort of swatches, is that if I don't have a very dense silt pattern that I've drawn, I'm going to have to fix that by drawing in a different pattern. So let me do that really quick. I'm going to paste this back, and in order to scale it down, I'm just going to grab the handlebar here. Let's move this up. Let's see if I can grab it. There we go. And let's shrink it down to something a little more manageable. Okay, now that should show up a little better. Let's go even a little farther. Okay, that's good. All right, now I'm going to turn this one into a swatch. So I have a big silt and a little silt. Let's delete that. Let's create another blob here. And there we go. And let's fill it with this swatch. There we go. A little bit nicer fill. So this comes in very handy where on our cave map here, I'm going to go ahead and draw a shape just to fill the general area. And notice that it's inherited that last fill, which is the silt fill. Over here, let's take it up. And there we go. So now if I click off of it, now I have this nice silt fill, which really it's too small. I shrunk it down. I need those dots to be a little bit bigger. Otherwise, they're never going to show up. But you get the point. You draw out the texture that you want, convert it into a swatch, draw an object, and then apply that swatch to the object, and you immediately have a fill. You could do that with mud. You could do that with water, with anything. And so I think that's probably it. Maybe in the next tutorial what we'll look at is how you might do water using gradients.